So to me, you're trying to force this Psalm 83 war, because until the Psalm 83 war happens, the Ezekiel 38:39 can't happen. And until Ezekiel 38:39 happens, we can't have the tribulation can't start, revelation can't happen. Which means until all that happened, Jesus can't come back on that white horse coming for y'all. Hey, 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 how are you? All right. This is episode 2 of my series that is entitled Prophecy, Power, and Manipulation. Well, really, it's prophecy or propaganda. And in this episode, we're going to go deeper into the biblical text that are used to well, propagandize, right? We are going to go deeper into the texts that are used to support this dispensationalism concept, to support the prophetic end times apocalyptic conversation, rapture, tribulation, all of that stuff. Now, before we get started, a couple of things. Hey, like, subscribe, and share. It'd be great. That'd be awesome. Also, I want you to go to this QR code at any point. There'll also be a link in the description box below, and you are going to then be able to download this ebook. It's 20 pages. It's a PDF, Prophecy, Power, and Manipulation, a critical guide to biblical end times prophecy and its ancient roots and how it's being used to justify modern wars. Right here, it's 20 pages. It's going to go through a lot of the information that have gone through and we will go through, and there's appendices in here as well as a geography of biblical prophecy, which we'll be kind of going through that in the next video. So I want you to download that at any given point in time throughout this whole thing. If you're watching on your television or on your tablet, you can just take your phone and screenshot this. If you're watching on your phone or wherever you're watching, you can also go down into the description box below, and you can download it from there. Okay, we're going to go on and get started. I'm going to open up my slideshow here, and we're going to go. Let's do, I guess we could do that one. Let's do this one here, shall we? Oh, it made it smaller. That's shocking. All right. Here we go. We're going to go into the key texts this go around. Okay, the key texts. This is going to be very important, and what they actually say. The last time, if you may recall, we did talk about the various ways that these texts can be interpreted. What I'm going to do now is go through each of the usual keys, right? The usual suspects that's used to talk about end times prophecies, the wars leading up to those end time prophecies. Now, I want to really say something here that's very important. Why am I going through this? I went through this a little bit the last time, but I want to make it very clear. I'm not here to say Christianity is crazy, that Judaism is crazy. I'm not here to denigrate anybody's faith. What I am here to do, though, is take a fresh look at how we are looking at these texts, how we are looking at biblical teaching, both in the Old and the New Testament, because it is my feeling that there are powers that be, very powerful men and women across this globe, that are using these texts and have used them for decades, years, centuries, that have used these texts to bolster their reasoning for and be able to say, yep, this is a holy war. But also, I want you to understand the more sinister, if you will, aspect of this. We understand that in order to make anything manifest in this earth, right, that it must be spoken, it must be thought, it must be emoted. There are 3 different parts of this. And one of the biggest parts of the reason why things are able to be made manifest is because we live in the identity of that which we are seeking to manifest. So if your identity is that of a dispensationalist, is that of I fully believe in all of my being, and this is who I am, in either a pre, a mid, or a post tribulation rapture. If you believe that everything is meant to be taken literally in all the biblical texts, if you believe that the current iteration of the state of Israel is still the biblical Israel, and therefore somehow it is meant to be protected at all costs, and it is this United States or the Christian realm that is meant to protect it at all costs. If you believe all of those things and many other things, if that's part of your core identity, then you think it, you will speak it, you will pray for it, you will emote it, and there are people that are going to be able to play on all of that energy and that identity to help to create and make it manifest in this world. Because if you do not have the identity of someone, right, who is whomever, then it's not going to be made manifest. If you don't possess within you the identity of someone that is a millionaire, a successful business person, it will never happen. A successful creator, it will never happen. Okay. So I need you to understand that what I'm saying is, as I believe firmly that there is mm, a group, a powerful, there are a number of powerful entities that want to see this happen for whatever their reasons. We can go into that another time, but they want to see this happen, and they're actually using the faith of the cover of Christianity and Judaism in order to facilitate this situation. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? The key text. I need to move something out of the way. I apologize. The key text. Here we go. Let's go. Now, how to read this chapter. So it is referencing the book, chapter 2, the key text. It's referencing the book. So how are we going to go through this today? Each key passage is presented in 3 different parts. The actual King James Version text, what that passage says. Then I'm going to present to you the common modern claim, what popular prophecy teaching says that it means, and then what's contested, side by side, what the scholarly record shows. And I understand we're talking faith, we're talking all these things. Your opinion may be, well, Lisa, we're talking faith stuff. This is not understood by scholars. There's no logic to it. That's not true. Because there must be some level of logic, of mental logic, in order for faith to be able to be really adhered to, and because it's got to make sense. And I'm going to challenge you that things that don't make sense, you need to ask, well, then what is the outcome in order to challenge it, right? What is the really outcome? Is it really good for you, humanity, what have you, before you just decide that you're going to have empty and blind faith in something? So I might not physically, or maybe I didn't before, I do now. I didn't physically understand how things were brought into this earth, made manifest into the earth, made into tangible reality. I didn't understand that. And then I kind of had blind faith about, well, these are the processes and procedures, so to speak. So I had blind faith in it. And then I began to deconstruct it and take it apart and say, oh, wait a minute. There's actual scientific truth to the manifestation process. Do you understand? That's quantum mechanics, okay? That's quantum physics, right? Science is now beginning to understand the science of the energy of, it's beginning to understand energy and energetic particles and things like that. Anyway, that's what this is here for. My goal is not to tell you what to believe. My goal is only and simply to show you that there's a gap between what the text says and the interpretation. And that gap is wider than what most, when I say lay audiences, I mean people that are not in ministry or haven't, gone to school or whatever. And the interesting thing, I will tell you this before we get started, is a lot of theologians and a lot of people that went to Bible school and things of that nature, if they're going to be honest with you, there's a lot of what they teach that they know is not right. Now, we could talk about that another time. If y'all want to talk about that, leave a comment below. But there's a lot of things that a lot of theologians know to be true in the Bible, and they teach very differently. So I'm not here to tell you to stop believing what you're believing. I'm just asking you to look at it. And I'm just asking you to begin to question it just a little bit. All right. Let's start, shall we? We're going to start with Daniel 9, the 9th chapter, the 24th through the 27th verse in the King James Version. I'm actually going to go to Daniel in my King James Bible. Hopefully, I can find it quickly. Here's Job, Nehemiah, Ezra, Chronicles. Where is Daniel? Child, you know what? You would think that I would know off the rip. Well, we'll fight it. 70 weeks. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins. This is why I think I want to go on and find this passage. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me, gang. I should have had this ready, shouldn't I? Good Lord, woman. What is wrong with you? Why do you not have this ready to go? Here we go. Daniel, the 9th chapter, the 24th through the 27th verse. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. That's verse 24. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublesome times. Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself and the people of the prince that shall come to destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week shall he cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Holy criminies, it's a lot, right? Holy cats. So the text says it's a series of 7 Hebrew shavuim, decreed over Jerusalem. A quote, prince to come associated with the destruction of the sanctuary, a covenant confirmed for 1 week, sacrifice and oblation caused to cease in the midst of the week, and it's very rich in numeric and symbolic language, right? If we go to verse 24, 70 weeks are determined upon the city. Some people will say that the 70 weeks shows 70 years. Other people say 70 weeks is 70 times 7 years, which is what, 490? But it's just very indeterminate time. Some people say the 70 weeks is a 7-year tribulation. I would, if I was going to interpret that as that, I would only really go with the one. There's a 7-week time period or something like that, where a week is a year. Or there's a 1-week time period where each day could be a year. It's kind of 70 weeks are determined upon thy peoples and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, because they had been transgressing. The people of Israel, the tribes of Israel at this point had been transgressing against God. All right. Popular claim: a future 7-year tribulation with the future Antichrist. Because they're saying the Messiah would come, and after 62 weeks, so somehow in this there's a 7-week time period, and then there's a 62 weeks, 3.5 or 33 score, I don't know, 60, I don't know. Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So there would be a time period, which is popular within the mid-trib, where the Messiah being cut off would be the Christians being raptured halfway through, but not for himself. Let me see here. That's 10. And shall have nothing. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So that's the Antichrist destroying the city and the temple of Jerusalem. This is on verse 26. And the end thereof shall be with a flood. But then in the book of Genesis, supposedly God made a covenant with Noah and said that the world would never be destroyed again with flood. And unto the right, I mean, this doesn't. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. So there's different desolations, there's different plagues, there's different all of this, right? So there's this gap theory that inserts itself in an unspecified pause between week 69 and 70 after 62 weeks. This gap is not in the text. It was invented to make the timeline work. There is no unspecified pause. There is no gap. John Darby formalized this in the 19th century. So once again, these are not ancient interpretations. These are current, like, reinterpretations, almost in this manner of, oh, we understand that this is timeless, and we have to find a new reason for people. Okay, we understand the word of God is timeless, right? But now we have to find a new reason for people to be afraid and to come to the church. Some of y'all might not like what I'm saying here, and I'm sorry for that. I am going to shake a few things, because this is the stuff I taught, so I know it really well. But when I deconstruct and come outside of it and look at it for what it is and have a different understanding of the holy text, I can see things a little differently. And when I look at the history of what was going on in Christendom at that time, it wasn't fundamentalist type Christianity. It wasn't that popular. And we had to find something new to get people to come through the doors. Oh, I got it. Y'all gonna burn. There's a whole tribulation, and there's a whole new grand revelation of the text. But let someone like me come along and say, wait, here's a revelation. If we interpret it in the manner in which it was being presented, now I'm wrong. Well, I'm wrong because you can't generate money, power, or fear off of that. Majority of scholars say that this has already been fulfilled. This is the Maccabean period, or the events of 70 CE, which would make sense. That 69 between week 69 and 70 gap is a modern theological invention. It's not an ancient reading. So Daniel 9, so what the historical record actually shows. Daniel was written to Jews living under the oppression of Antiochus the Fourth, Epiphanes, from the years 175 to 164 BCE. Okay. The 70 weeks framework mirrors other second century apocalyptic literature of the era. So there are more than one text that talks about this 70 weeks. The abomination of desolation is widely understood to refer to Antiochus's desecration of the temple in 167 BCE, before the ascension, right before Christ. Many early Christian interpreters, including Origen and Eusebius, read this passage as already fulfilled. So this gap theory only really became prominent in Protestant, so not in Catholic, and Protestant circles after the 19th century. It is not the oldest of the Christian reading and interpretation. And it's not honestly the majority verdict in scholarly reading. Okay? You can take that for what it's worth. You can read what came prior, read what came after, but just know that a lot of this was already discussed in prior text. Okay? In prior text. Now we're going to go to one of my actually favorite passages and what I used to teach from quite a bit, guys. Ezekiel 38. We're just going to read. Now, this is a summation, right? I'm going to read verses 1 through 6 straight from my King James Version. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, verse 2, Son of man, set thy face against Gog. Okay. And I'm going to probably do a little references with this. Against Gog, which is also cross-referenced in this particular Bible to Revelation chapter 20, verse 8. So let me just kind of go there. Revelation chapter 20, verse 8, because we're going to get a lot of this. Where do they get this stuff from? Okay. Revelation 20, it's almost at the end of the whole thing. Chicken wing. Right? 20, verse 8. And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So that's kind of where this 200 million man group and army and stuff like that. Now, what you're also going to find, if you're looking for references, let me share this with you guys. Just pause for 1 second. When you're looking for references and concordances within the Bible, I think everybody, if you have a standard Bible, right, there usually is some sort of reference table in the middle, in between the two, right? There's always some references, right? The typical test for whether or not something is to be considered true is whether or not everything should be borne by two or three witnesses, right? So what happens is we get this cross-referencing of biblical text, one within the next, but it doesn't necessarily explain the other one. It just kind of cross-references. The same way that you'll see current media, right? What'll happen is in mainstream media right now, you'll hear like almost a marching, right, a narrative. Everybody's saying the same thing at the same time about the same event. And then, oh, it must be true. A lot of times what you'll need to do when you see an article or you see something on the news, you're going to need to go back and find where it started from. Because what'll happen is each of the next outlets will just quote the previous one. And then everybody assumes it's true because it's everywhere. Not true. Son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them. Verse 3, and say, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, and of all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Verse 5, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, and all of them with shield and helmet. Verse 6, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah and of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Now, that's a lot. Let me tell you what people typically have believed this to be. So the text names a bunch of different groups, right? And people. Gog from the land of Magog. So this is like the leader. Gog from the land of Magog. The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Persia, which is modern Iran. Most people agree with that. Ethiopia / Cush and Sudan / Nubia. There's a strong consensus with that. Libya, which was old Put in North Africa. People agree with that. Gomer and Beth Togarmah, Anatolian names, and that God intervenes in this 38-39 and destroys the entire army. This is what's really contested. That Russia, most people, or I grew up, right, hearing that Magog was Russia. Okay, and Gog was like the leader. That Russia then is leading this coalition. If I look at the current countries, honestly, let me just be real with you. Most of them have a somewhat of a relationship with Russia. They definitely don't have one with us being the US, because we screwed it up. Can I just be real? Politically, we screwed it up. We kept screwing these people over, kept doing regime change, usually at the behest of or because of the need for protecting God's chosen people, Israel. And I don't roll my eyes because I'm against Israel. I roll my eyes because if we really look at who these Israelite tribes were, who the tribes of Israel truly were referenced in the text, I don't know that I can arrive that they are the current inhabitants of what is now called Israel. I don't think I can arrive at that assumption any longer. Anyway, Rosh equals Russia, rejected by most Hebrew scholars. So there's no Rosh that's in here. But that concept that is Russia is rejected by most Hebrew scholars, and Ezekiel is what? Hebraic text. It's Old Testament. Rosh in Hebrew means chief or head. It's an adjective. It's not a place name. Meshech, Moscow, equals Moscow. There's no phonetic or historical basis for that. Gomer, they typically say equals Germany. No. There's no ancient source. All geographic names point towards an Anatolia, Turkey, not Moscow. Gomer does not equal Germany. Beth Togarmah. Oh. The Russia identification was popularized in the 20th century and it has no ancient support. So the issue with Ezekiel 38, this particular section, the Russia problem. The Russia identification rests, it's really all about this Rosh equaling Russia. There was a Hebraic or Hebrew linguist that proposed this in his lexicon in 1786 to 1842. But subsequently and prior to that, the scholars rejected it. It's not phonetically correct, and it is wholly historically unsupported. That was never the meaning of that. And you can't take that etymology and then turn it into Russia. The name Russia derives from the Rus or Rus people, a 9th century Viking Vargangian group in Eastern Europe. Doesn't come. There was no Hebraic similarity to that because they didn't exist then. We're talking 9th century, 800s. This is written BCE. Ezekiel was written 1500 years, 6th century BCE, 1500 years before the Rus people even existed. And the geographical names in Ezekiel 38 very consistently appear in ancient text as the Anatolian or Caucasus mountain peoples, of which, popular prophecy teaching presents Russia reading as obvious, and it's definitely not. So we're debunking the Russian issue. Ezekiel 38, 18 through 20. Here we go. I still have my Bible open, so let's read it straight from the Bible. 18. Verse 18. Chapter 38, verse 18. And it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea, and this is verse 20, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. This passage is not a war map. It's a very theological statement. This is basically saying God's going to protect Israel, right? There's a lot of times where some things are literal, some things are not representative. You can interpret mountains as governments. You can interpret sea and then fishes in the sea as a sea of peoples, and the fishes as races. There's a million and one different ways to interpret these things. However, there are some historical things that may have happened. This is very consistent with Ezekiel's the larger themes of the divine sovereignty and of national restoration. Because don't forget, I think I read this for you in episode 1, in the first video in this series, that Ezekiel was called to speak to the nation of Israel. Did I read that full bit to you about how they're hard-headed? Here, now in Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 6, not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely I have sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto. Surely had I sent thee unto them, the people that don't know you, and you don't know their language, they would have hearkened unto thee. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-headed. Behold, I have made thee face strong against their faces, verse 8, thy forehead strong against their foreheads, verse 9, and as an adamant harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. That was chapter 2, verse 9, as we close that portion out. That's how he calls Ezekiel. He says, listen, I'm going to send you to my hard-headed kids. I'm sending you to these kids that's hard-headed. They don't listen to me. They ain't listening to me. And baby, they ain't going to listen to you. However, the next set of verses says, basically, I know they ain't going to hear you. But if you don't tell them what I got to say, then the blood is on your hands. That was the same when I was called to the ministry, when I was called to the prophetic. That's this very section of scripture that I sat down in my Aunt Charlene's house in her living room. I'll never forget it. I was helping her to recover after a knee surgery, if I recall. And I was sitting down reading the Bible, and there you go. That's where I was called from. So he has Ezekiel speaking these things, and then speaking of restoration of Israel, when he already said they were hard-headed, they were rebellious. This was all speaking directly to them. All the imagery, the fire, the brimstone, the earthquakes, the hailstones, mirrors other divine warrior passages in Hebrew scripture. And the ancient Jewish readers recognized this as divine protection literature or verses or promises. It was written to assure that the exiled Jews that the God had not abandoned them. And then this question of the question of whether it has ongoing prophetic relevance is completely separate from the Russian identification question. And to me, if we are unable to solidify that it has anything to do with Russia at all, then we have to question the entirety of this whole thing. Because if we can't identify all of it, we're going to have a hard time identifying any of it. And also, this whole turning, a lot of times, what will be said is that I'm going to turn and hook your jaw and turn you around and all this stuff. That was kind of like, like a sickle or a scythe, like I'm going to grab your jaw and I'm going to yank you around. Because I've heard it preached, and I've preached it myself, where it was saying, well, no, basically God's going to hook the jaw and turn them around, and then Russia is going to come down into this land without walls and invade us. Child, like we just always, why is it that Christian, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean no harm, but why is it that colonizing like the colonizing mindset, especially the Christian mindset, always has to interject themselves into the BS? Why is it that it always has to why is it this sense of Christian always has to interject itself into the BS? Why you always got to be a part of something? You don't have to be a part of everything. Everything ain't got nothing to do with you. Oh God, irritating. All right, here we go. No, let's go over here. All right, let's move on. Because that'd be my problem. I mean, that's literally my problem. Okay. Psalm 83, 1 through 8. I ain't there yet. Hold on. 83. Psalm 83, 1 through 8. Now, this is not one I ever preached from, so this would be interesting for me too. Verse 1 says, keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. And they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation. Oh Lord, here we go. That the name of Israel may be no more and in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Harganes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. And verse 8 says, Assur, which is usually named as Assyria or Syria, has joined with them, and they have holpen the children of Lot. All right. How many times have all these people joined up against Israel? Like, I mean, and I'm going to say one thing here, Doug. We're going to look at this a little bit. But I'm going to tell you one quick thing. The people of Israel are no longer hidden. Thy hidden ones. They have consulted against thy hidden ones. They're out in the open. Okay, a lament psalm, one of the most common genres in the Psalter. The psalmist cries out to God Because this, now let me tell you, this was not written by David. This was a psalm, a song or psalm of Asaph, not David. The psalmist cries out to God because enemies have conspired against Israel. Names surrounding peoples: Edom, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, Tyre, and Assyria. Ask God to defeat them as in the past. The prayer ends with a call for God's glory to be known, not for a battle plan. And most Old Testament scholars classify it as a prayer, not a prophecy. So now let me tell you what these here Christians are throwing this in as. Now they talking about, oh, this is the future war involving Israel's immediate neighbors, Jordan, Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria, all coordinated attack. And they go further to say that this Psalm 83 war must happen before Ezekiel 38. Let me tell you why I feel like this is so dumb, what they're doing right now. Literally trying, this is my feeling. I don't know how y'all gonna feel about this, but this is my feeling. Currently, as of March the 15th of 2026, currently what's happening is this. Israel decided to tap on our shoulder, and this is well known. Let's not act like we're brand new. This go around, this time, tapped on our shoulder and said, we about to go bomb Iran. We don't need your help. We were like, nah, like, why? Well, you know, they've been trying to get at y'all head for 47 years. Ignoring the fact that we were all up in their stuff. We're going to just ignore that, right? That just don't exist. We just going to act like that didn't happen. Okay, cool. So we're going to ignore it. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's what's going on. Okay. Well, we don't really think this is US, but we don't really think we should be involved in all that. Like that it really ain't about us, you know, America first and all that. Well, fine, we going anyway. So basically trying to get Big Brother to come fight the battle. And if you don't, I'm still going anyway. And we have a joint father, aka God. And so I'm gonna tell daddy on you. Basically, it's your, you have to take care of me. I know I'm older, but you have to take care of me. It's biblically written. You're a Christian nation. If that's the case, can we just pay attention to one thing? Yes, the whole thing started over there with with Iran. But what has Israel done since then? Bombed Jordan, bombed Lebanon, bombed Gaza again, meddling around with the UAE, basically picking with everybody else. They started this. I can't. So to me, you're trying to force this Psalm 83 war, because until the Psalm 83 war happens, the Ezekiel 38-39 can't happen. And until Ezekiel 38-39 happens, we can't have the tribulation, can't start, Revelation can't happen. Which means until all that happened, Jesus can't come back on that white horse coming for y'all. The dead in Christ can't rise. The trumpets can't sound. The seals can't be broken. Not until these things happen. Are you grasping the concept of manipulation? And I'm not trying to make it so simple, but it is simple when you break it down. Israel wins this particular war decisively, enabling the temple to be rebuilt. Well, the temple was already being rebuilt. This specific scenario was invented in the early 2000s. That I had stopped teaching all this stuff by then. So that's why I was like, I ain't never taught them. Had I? No. Well, no, I hadn't stopped teaching by the end. but I never taught this. No ancient or classical interpretation treats it as a future war timeline. Its popularity was really, yes, a measure of marketing. Oh, we have another Daniel. How many more do I got? Okay. The Old Testament scholarship usually is united on this point that Psalm 83 is a lament. Okay. If you're looking for other these type of kind of asking God, praying to God for deliverance, here's a whole list. Psalm 44, 60, 70. I mean, it's through there. And it's mostly in the later Psalms, like the mid to latter Psalms, because that's kind of after a lot of those David didn't necessarily even write. So you'll find that none of these Psalms have until the 2000s were ever treated as prophetic. Okay. Um, and I put in here Bill Salas, beginning around 2008, was the one that really was pumping this up. Let's look at Daniel 11 verses 40 through 30. Daniel 11. Daniel's a long chapter. We're getting ready. It's only 12 chapters in Daniel. Verses 40 through 30. And verse 40 says, "And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over." Verse 41, "He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon." Verse 42, "He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape." Verse 43, "But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps." The king of the north and the king of the south are in a conflict. That's what we're talking about. Egypt, Libya, and Cush, which is the Sudan, are mentioned. The northern king moves toward Jerusalem. Most people say, "Oh, well, that's Russia." Verses 1 through 39 describe verifiable historical events in very great detail. And the earlier verses describe the Seleucid and Ptolemaic kingdoms precisely. So to take all of that and then extrapolate that out as if it's the future when it's already happened. Insanity. Insanity. It's already happened. Do you see a pattern here? Let's go with Isaiah 17. This is another very popular prophetic book. Oops, went the wrong way. 17, verse 1. 17 and 1. "The burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap." This is a real popular one. That this all got to happen well before anything else happened. I think we only have a couple more. The Damascus question. Isaiah 17 pronounces judgment against Damascus. The popular prophecy claim, which I have said many times myself, and I typically use that when I'm talking to people right now. Damascus ain't never been destroyed to this yet, not fully. So they're saying that definitely is pointing to the future. So, however, Damascus was conquered and heavily damaged by the Assyrians in 732 BCE. So basically, most scholars say that this prophecy has already been fulfilled. Now, maybe not a ruinous heap, but it depends on your interpretation. of what you consider a ruinous heap. And that same language appears in other Isaiah passages whose historical fulfillment is not disputed. So this concept of a ruinous heap has been applied as have happened in other parts of Isaiah, but not in this one. Come on now. It's this. It's the. Oh, yeah. We're gonna do this interpretation because it fits here and not, but it don't fit here. All right. Revelation chapter 9, verses 13 through 16. Revelation chapter 9 and verse 13 says, "And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God." Verse 14, saying unto the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, "Loose the four angels, which are bound in the great river Euphrates." And the four angels, verse 15, were loosed, and which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. So a third of men. And verse 16, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, 200 million. And I heard the number of them. So this is where in Revelation 9, after the sixth trumpet, that we get the 200 million man army. Angels bound at the Euphrates are released. Okay. There's a 200 million man army. They're described with very symbolic energy. In verse 17, it says, "And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as heads of lions. And out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three," and I'm not sure who the three are, "was the third part of men killed." So a third of the men on the earth were killed, and by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone. So the fire, the smoke, and the brimstone, which issued out of the mouths of these lions or these people, for their power was in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt. That's verse 19. So Revelation uses a lot of symbolic, right? It does have some demographic, and it's a lot of numerology everywhere. So this what was being taught, probably still is a 200 million man Chinese army saying it's coming out of the east. China's total population was not 200 million until centuries after, so this could be prophetic. Revelation uses a lot of sevens and 12s and 144,000 and 1,000. The kings from the east are not identified with any nation. China is our modern cultural assumption, but the rest of it doesn't really mention anything about Asia. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say that this one is really hotly like, of any of the texts that we have read, could I see this one happening? Sure. I could also see where some kind of dirty bomb or some kind of bomb, missile, that the fire and brimstone comes out of the mouth, and the tail could look like a serpent, like the smoke. So I could see where this could be future. That I could see. Okay. I don't know that the 200 million men now come only from China, though, because there's a lot that's east. There's a lot of land and countries that are east of Israel. So we're not sure. That one's up for discussion. Revelation 16, 12 through 16. Verse 12, and the sixth angel poured out its vial. Here we go with the vials. Upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, and the way of the kings of the east, that the way of the kings of the east may be prepared. So the Euphrates, the river, right? Then that would say it's going to be in Africa. And I saw, verse 13, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Verse 14, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and to the whole world, to gather them that gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Verse 15, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, lest he see his shame. Verse 16, which kind of refers back to Adam and Eve, right? And gathered he them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. So this is setting the stage for Armageddon. Okay, that's what those verses are doing. Armageddon means Har Megiddo, the hill of Megiddo in northern Israel. The plain of Megiddo was a famous ancient battlefield, a symbolic of decisive conflict. And this passage just definitely describes the huge gathering, not a detailed battle scenario, because the kings of the east are not named, they're not identified. The frogs, the drying Euphrates, and the gathering are all symbolic apocalyptic energy. The interesting thing is I believe that river is already drying up now. So is this happening now? We haven't had a 6th angel vial poured out. Could it happen in the future? A lot of people say that the Euphrates will dry up and then everybody meets in this valley. I don't know. And then verse Revelation 19 describes a figure on a white horse defeating gathered armies. So that would be Jesus' return, right? But typically what happened is this was this was real popular in the 90s, especially 90s, early 2000s. Oh, it's China. Like China was the new Russia, you know what I mean? And so, oh yeah, 200 million Chinese men are going to march down and they're going to want to take over Israel. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that all of this, think about it. Right now, it's proxy wars. But what happens when it stops being proxy wars? Okay. Let me see. Is this the last one? Oh, this isn't even in the book. Yeah, you're going to need this one because this isn't even in your ebook. Zechariah 12, 2 and 3. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. I'm not going to say nothing. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut into pieces, though all the people of the earth shall be gathered against it. Now, let me tell you, can we just say one thing real quick before I move on? Can we just say one thing real quick? If you making Jerusalem a burdensome stone for everybody and people that burden themselves with it shall be cut into pieces, and here we are over there fighting for them. Okay, I'm just going to leave that be. I'm going to let it go. 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 This is the very, this is where the focus is all on Jerusalem. Beginning with the regions, expands to all natures. God intervenes to defend. Zechariah chapter 14 describes a massive geographic changes and a transformed Jerusalem. So we can take Zechariah 12, we can take Zechariah 14, and then a lot of people take Zechariah 14 and they begin to merge it with the Armageddon sequence in Revelation. But Zechariah doesn't catalog specific nations. The focus is a little bit more on Jerusalem, as if it's giving us a little bit of a different focus, right? A different lens. It's changing the camera angle. So I'm not going to say Zechariah that between 12 to 14, those chapters, I'm not going to say that it has happened already, but I do see where if you begin to manipulate the chess pieces, the pieces on the chessboard, you can force it to come true. Matthew 24. This is a real famous one too. Matthew 24, 15 through 16, and then verse 21. Verse 15, when ye therefore, this is Jesus speaking, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel, Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Verse 16, then let them which be in Judea flee unto the mountains, which is considered usually the mountains of Patmos. Verse 21 then says, for then shall be great tribulation. This is where we get the whole 7-year tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. This is it's called the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. Because this is the Sermon on the Mount, or the Mount of Olives. It stretches from verse 24 all the way through chapter 24, all the way through chapter 26. There's a lot that's given in the Sermon on the Mount. And when the disciples were asking him about when some other things would happen that he had been teaching on, because they were asking about when the temple would be rebuilt, when these things would happen. And Jesus was actually describing the destruction of Jerusalem that happened in 70 CE. 70 years after he was here is when all of everything was destroyed. The warning to flee to the mountains was very local. It was right then and there. It wasn't distant future. And first century Christians did flee Jerusalem or Judea before 70 CE, and they survived that siege. And that was, I believe, by the Roman Empire. And this abomination of desolation has been said so many different times, but there are specific references to the Caligula and other Roman desecration of the temple. So it's very difficult, I think, for people historically to be able to say, yeah, well, this is it. I don't think so. I don't think we can do that. I think that we have, and Gemini came to join us, I think that we have a lot, there leaves a lot to be desired when we look at this. Okay, we've been together a little bit longer than I anticipated to go through the text. I hope that this has helped you have a different way to look at this. And what I want you to do is, are there other prophetic texts or sections or scriptures that now maybe you look at a little bit differently, or you have questions about? Put that in the comments below. I'm more than happy to have conversation about it. But again, if you begin to look at this through the lenses that we gave you before, you may see that a lot of these things that have now been reappropriated to the future actually have already happened in the past. But because of this concept of reappropriating it into the future, in order to be able to have these wars and these conflicts where you get the Christians that say, yep, absolutely, we're going to do this, it's not a problem. Because this is all biblical prophecy. See? And they point to the Bible and say, see, all this is happening. It's like, dude, no, somebody created this. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Anyway, guys, go and download the book. I may actually update it. So just, or I may give you a secondary. Download that book and the PDF. and follow along. And definitely the next time, for sure, the next chapter definitely goes through the maps and the locations, the ancient names, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to definitely go through that, and then the modern maps associated with it. So we're going to go through that, and then afterwards we're going to talk about the manipulation playbook. I needed to lay all of this down so that you would understand how the manipulation playbook actually works. Thanks so much for being with me. I very much appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And peace, love, blessings, and joy be unto you today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. I love you guys so much. Namaste. Bye.